America goes crazy with the new abortion law, especially Alabama's laws. There has been a lot of information on this. I'm sure you've already heard of this law, but part of all of this has been the craze and the insane lies and myths, and I dare I say fake news about the Alabama law specifically. So today we're going to go through and debunk some of those myths, and we'll also talk about some of the crazy responses that we've had to this Alabama law. My name is Elisa Steele. You're listening to Deconstructing the Culture. The Alabama law. Have I ever seen a pro-life law in the last few years that has caused this much national controversy? It's not even funny. So much fear, so many lies, so much disagreement, even among conservatives. So do you guys remember Tomi Lahren or Tomi Lahren? I never know how to say her last name. Well, she used to have a show on the Blaze TV, but then it was a big deal. She went on The View and she said that it was hypocritical to both support limited government and pro-life laws, and now she is criticizing Alabama's heartbeat bill as too restrictive. She went on to say on Twitter, "I will be attacked by fellow conservatives for saying this, but so be it. This Alabama abortion ban is too restrictive. It doesn't save lives. It simply forces women into more dangerous methods. Other states or countries, you don't encourage life via blanket government mandate." Now, obviously, this is not true. It's just not true. We're going to go through and debunk some of these myths a little bit later on the podcast, but for now, I'm just going to say, Tomi, I don't understand how you call yourself a conservative. I'm not trying to be a mudslinger and deciding who's conservative and who's not, but I'm just saying it's kind of a bedrock belief for conservatives to believe in the value of life, that we protect life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and you have to have life for the other too. She continued after being criticized on Twitter, "If you think banning abortion with no exception for rape or incest will stop women from terminating pregnancy, you're not being honest with yourself. P.S. You're not God, so don't you dare evaluate my Christian faith based on your moral superiority complex." Now, I'm not going to judge your faith, Tomi, but I have made blanket statements on Instagram that you cannot be an active advocate of abortion and be be a Christian. It's just, it doesn't hold water. It's like saying, I believe in Jesus Christ, but I don't believe he rose from the dead. Maybe not that bedrock of a belief, but it's a pretty important one. God knew us in our mother's wombs. He created us. He knows every hair on our head. It's, kind of an important principle. It's like trying to say you're conservative, but you don't believe in traditional marriage. That's kind of one of the main principles of conservatism. Anyway, she also she's getting a lot of flack, and honestly, I feel bad for her because she is young. She and I are very close in age, and sometimes I wonder if I'm going to say things that I regret later, because I feel like this is something she's going to say now, and then maybe later on in life after she's gotten married and has had children, maybe she'll change her mind. I'm not sure, but in the meantime, she is getting a lot of flack over this. Speaking of interesting responses to the Alabama law, we had a model go completely nude to, punish those old white men who passed the abortion law. I'm not even kidding. This chick named Emily, and I don't even want to try and say her last name because it's so complicated. Anyways, this model named Emily, she decided to post a picture on Instagram of her completely nude. She's literally just covering her chest, and then has a strategically placed flower to punish the old white men, of course. She says, "This week, 25 old white men voted to ban abortion in Alabama, even in the cases of rape and incest." She captioned the photo, continuing, "These men in power are imposing their wills onto the bodies of women in order to uphold the patriarchy and perpetuate the industrial prison complex by preventing women of low economic opportunity the right to choose not to reproduce." So what you're saying is that more low-income women are going to go to jail, or their children are going to go to jail. Either way, it doesn't actually hold water, because truth be told, having not a lot of money doesn't mean you're going to be a criminal. It's kind of like saying all poor people are criminals. So right there, she's kind of, on a pretty sketchy side. She also says that it's imposing their wills onto the bodies of women. It's like me saying, I want to go murder my neighbor, and how dare you impose your will on me for telling me that it's illegal for me to go and kill my neighbor so I can take his whatever he has that I want. It's like me telling him, how dare you impose your will on me for this issue? It's ludicrous when your rights and your will end where your body ends and end at you infringing on other people's rights. And it's not your body, your choice. She ends the caption at the end. She goes, our bodies, our choice, which is not even scientific. For a leftist side that says they're the party of science, they're not the party of science, because they don't even take the basic scientific facts that life begins at conception, and it's clearly not your body, because we don't go to pregnant women and say, hey there, how's your body doing today? How is your extra body parts in your stomach? How's that going today? No, we say, how is your baby? Because we inherently know it is a baby and it's a separate human being. Because if it was your body, then you'd have 20 toes and 20 fingers and 2 hearts and 2 brains, and that's ludicrous. We know that's not the case. So she also, tried to make it kind of racist, and she put in here, the states trying to ban abortion are the states that have the highest proportions of Black women living there, unintentionally highlighting that Black babies stand to gain the most from the pro-life legislation. Yes, she is unintentionally highlighting that. She's trying to say that we're banning abortions because there's lots of Black people. First of all, I don't think race matters. Human life is human life, and you should protect it all. But does she know that Margaret Sanger started Planned Parenthood because she was a believer in eugenics, and she thought that we needed to eliminate the Black race that way? So she should probably open a science book and a history book. All right, so continuing on, I'm going to do something unusual for this episode. This is not something that I have done in the past, but this article was so well written. I'm mostly going to take this from an article from Live Action. Live Action is one of my favorite pro-life organizations. If you're not familiar with them, definitely check it out. Congrats, by the way, to Lila Rose. She's pregnant with her first, which is very, very exciting. And Live Action put out a phenomenal article debunking a lot of those myths. So I'm going to go ahead and link this article if you are more of a reader. And I already posted this article and shared it on Instagram, but I know a lot of you guys are less inclined to read and would like to actually listen. So if you're driving and you want to know all the facts about the Alabama law, now is your lucky chance to get that. It's actually not luck, because you're awesome, you're educating yourself, and you're listening to my podcast. All right, so Alabama's law, we know, is one of the strongest pro-life laws in the country, and it was signed by the actually female governor, Kay Ivey, and it's called the Human Life Protection Act. And it will essentially make abortion illegal and attempted abortion illegal and a felony offense in that state, with one exception. The one exception is life of the mother, and it does not make any exceptions for rape or incest. So here's a claim that we need to debunk, and that is women will be held criminally liable and prosecuted for getting abortions. This is not true. It clearly says in the bill that it's only the abortion doctor who will be criminally prosecuted, not the woman, which some people feel like is too soft, others feel like it's just right. But regardless of your feelings, here are the facts. It doesn't actually prosecute the women, so it'll actually get rid of all the doctors. It'll be too risky for doctors to do it because they don't want to go to jail for anywhere between 10 and 99 years, and so they will not perform abortions, which I honestly think is a really great way for this. It doesn't work for all industries. I'm thinking of one in particular, but it works for this one, I believe. Another false claim is women who miscarry will be punished. Oh, this is one of the dumbest things that's been pushed. The hatred on Instagram is so bad. You guys have seen in some of my stories some of the worst. Actually, they're not really the worst. I posted some of the really bad, insulting ones with the least language is kind of what I was sharing. But I woke up a few days after this was passed, and man, oh man, I literally had hundreds of messages, and a lot of them were really hateful. And some of them were just being like, how dare you? You're going to send all these women to jail, which we know is not true because it's the abortion doctors being punished. And also that women who miscarry will go to jail. No, miscarriage is clearly not an abortion. It's a natural cause. Abortion is very clearly outlined in the bill as the use or prescription of any instrument, medicine, drug, or any other substance or device with the intent to terminate the pregnancy of a woman known to be pregnant with knowledge that the termination by those means will be will result in a reasonable likelihood cause of the death of the unborn child. So this is clearly not going to punish women who have miscarriages. It's a natural cause. It doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on, women have miscarriages. In fact, my grandmother, who had 14 children, had at least that many miscarriages as well. Another false claim is the Alabama law does not allow for any exceptions. Yes, it does. As we've talked about, it provides an exception for medical cases, although some doctors would actually say that there isn't any medical necessity that requires an abortion. And let me explain that. A lot of people on Instagram are really confused confused by this. Essentially, the difference is there's a difference between intentionally killing a child and then performing an abortion to save the mother's life that unfortunately results in the child being born too premature to survive or results in the child's death. There's a very big difference between intentionally going in strictly to kill the child and then another to save the mother's life, and as a result, the child may not survive. That's what I mean by there is no medical reason that would necessitate an abortion, the active and purposeful trying to kill a child, if that makes sense. So it states in the language, an abortion shall be permitted if an attending physician licensed in Alabama determines that an abortion is necessary in order to prevent a serious health risk of the unborn child's mother. Except in the case of a medical emergency as defined herein, the physician's determination shall be confirmed in writing by a second physician licensed in Alabama. Now, it doesn't create any exceptions for rape or incest, which I personally am in favor of not having that exception. The reason being, and you can check my Instagram, I've talked about this a lot, it's barbaric, and I know that the left is calling this bill barbaric, but it truly is barbaric to take the life of an innocent child because of the sins of the father. Truly, that's really what it is. If something evil and horrible and traumatic happens to a woman, it doesn't give her the moral authority to take another person's life. Truly. It's like saying, you know what? Somebody came and killed my husband. That gives me the right to pick anyone on the streets I want. I'm going to kill them. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't give me the moral authority because something horrible and tragic happened to me to kill someone else. And yes, it will grow in you for 9 months, but pregnancy is not a disease. It's not the end of the world. It will not be more damaging than the abortion. The abortion will cause more long-term trauma and more long-term disastrous effects. It can cause anything from women going sterile, not being able to have children again, to other terrible things. I mean, a lot of women die from poorly performed abortions. Like, there's just so many risks, not to mention the long-term psychological trauma caused to a woman. And, you know, people love to throw you worst case scenarios out there. In fact, there's a story of a little girl who got pregnant, or she was raped and got pregnant at age 11. And they're like, how awful. You would force that child to carry a baby. You know, it's not force. Unfortunately, the force came with the sexual assault. But her having that child killed, which quite frankly, she's not even mentally and emotionally capable of making that decision. She's not prepared to deal with the long-term repercussions of that decision when she herself is only a child. And I can tell you right now, having an abortion, both physically and emotionally, is going to be far more traumatic than carrying that baby to term and either keeping it or allowing an adopted family to keep it. Back to the article. Another false claim is men are leading the way to ban abortion. We know this is not true. Obviously, the bill was sponsored by a female lawmaker, Representative Carrie Collins. It was signed into law by a female governor, Kay Irvy, and also a lot of pro-life organizations are led by women. In fact, it's been conservative icons like Phyllis Schlafly who really brought the abortion industry and abortion issue to the limelight. It's been people like Lila Rhodes. It's been people like I'm blanking her name, but the fabulous woman who runs Students for Life. It's been a lot, in large part, many, many women who are pushing the pro-life movement. Plus, quite frankly, if you're going to make this argument that it doesn't matter or the law isn't applicable if it's made by men, well, Roe versus Wade was a Supreme Court decision that was imposed by all men. So apparently, by your logic, that doesn't hold any water because it was decided by men. Now, another false claim is doctors would receive 99 years in prison. We already addressed that. They'll receive anywhere, like any felony, they'll receive a range of punishment options, just depending on what the judge decides. Another false claim is the Constitution grants a right to abortion. The Supreme Court passed or approving Roe versus Wade is one of the worst decisions ever made in history, because it was made on such a loose, thin, grasping string that it doesn't really make sense. Basically, what is mostly founded on is the 14th Amendment, which is known for giving citizenship and equal rights under the law to former slaves and African Americans. However, it is actually the belief of many legal scholars that this right should also apply to the unborn. So it really could go the other way. The Roe versus Wade decision was mostly pulled out of a hat or out of their, I'm not going to go there. I was going to say something inappropriate, but we're going to continue on. Let's just say it was a bad decision and it had no legal holding. Another claim is that Roe versus Wade was settled in law, therefore it's over, it's done. I hear this one all the time. And while some consider settled, obviously laws can be overturned. We have seen this throughout history, and just because something is passed or is settled in the Supreme Court, it doesn't make it moral. Racism and segregation used to be the law of the land, and it didn't mean it was right. It's not moral. In Dred Scott versus Stanford, the Supreme Court ruled that Black people were not citizens. We know this is obviously immoral and wrong, and that was overturned with the 14th Amendment. And the same can be done with this immoral ruling, Roe versus Wade, and can be ruled that indeed human beings are valuable and should be protected while they're unborn. Now, the last claim I'm going to talk about is thousands of women will die from back alley abortions. This is not true. The thousands of women thing came up and has been widely debunked. It was just a number that someone threw out there and it sounded nice on paper, but this has never been the case. In fact, in 1972, the year before Roe, there were a total of 39 recorded deaths from illegal abortions and 24 deaths in a handful of states where abortion was in fact legal already. In 1973, the year the Supreme Court forced abortion on the nation, the CDC reports that there were 19 deaths from illegal abortions and 25 deaths from legal abortions. So as you can see, that thousands number is completely thrown out there. And really what you can gain from this is legal or illegal, abortion is risky and dangerous and can severely affect the health of the mother. Now, before I continue on to our next couple of segments, I want to ask you to please subscribe, leave a review, share with a friend. If you're more of a visual person, subscribe on YouTube, and I will post other videos there too outside of the podcast. And if you're on iTunes, the rankings really, really matter. So if you go ahead and leave a 5-star review, if you're feeling like you want to do the easy route, or if you feel especially inspired today, then go ahead and leave a nice review and some words, and I'll share that on Instagram. All right, now we're going to go into our section for books. This is a book that I love. This book is a classic, and I know a lot of you have probably heard of the movie, but have you heard of the book Les Miserables? This is an all-time favorite of mine. I read it probably about 6 times because it inspires me every time. It's just so good. Now, if you've never heard of it before, it's a French historical novel by Victor Hugo. It was first published in 1862 and is considered one of the greatest novels of the 19th century. In the English-speaking world, the novel is actually usually referred to by its original French title. However, several alternatives have also been used, including the miserable, the wretched, the miserable ones, the poor ones, the wretched poor, the victims, and the disposed. Beginning in 1815 and ending in 1832, it was basically about the French Rebellion in Paris, and the novel follows the lives and interactions of several key characters, particularly the struggles of ex-convict. And I am going to not give away the rest of the novel. The rest of this description that I had copied has like the whole story pulled out, and I'm not going to ruin it for you, but let's just leave it here. It's amazing. It's inspiring. You'll walk away feeling like you want to be a better person. It examines the nature of law and grace. It talks about the history of France, the architecture, the urban design of Paris, politics, moral philosophy, justice, religion, and the types of nature in romantic and familial love. All right, definitely go check out that book. It's one of my all-time favorite books. Now for a song. It's called If I Can't Have You by Shawn Mendes. This is one of the Billboard's top 100 songs. I think it's like number 4 or something. It's big. And I don't know why so many dumb songs get to be so popular. Just throwing that out there. But here are some of the lyrics. I can't write one song that's not about you. I can't drink without thinking about you. Is it too late to tell you everything Everything means nothing if I can't have you. Hold up right there. This is a problem. Your life can't mean nothing if you don't have that girl in your life or that guy in your life. Your life should revolve around something else, preferably your God and your faith, and I don't know, making the world a better place. A spouse is a beautiful and wonderful thing, but if your life is literally nothing, means nothing, if he can't have her, then he's got his priorities a little screwed, and I don't think he's gonna be really happy long term, because even if you do have her, she could die. She could decide she doesn't like you anymore. She could I don't know, change into a different person like we all do in marriage eventually. And then you won't have the same person. Will you still be happy, just as happy, or will all of a sudden everything mean nothing again? Continuing, I'm in Toronto and I get this view, but I might as well be in a hotel room. Yeah, it doesn't matter because I'm so consumed spending all my nights reading texts from you. This is obsessive behavior. And if your guy is this obsessive and spending all his nights reading texts, old texts from you, you might be a little concerned about his mental health. All right, continuing. Oh, I'm good at keeping my distance. I know that you're the feeling I'm missing. Okay, so he's depending on her for his happiness. That's not healthy. I know that I hate to admit it, but everything means nothing if I can't have you. Yes, this is emotional dependency or codependence, and it's not healthy at all. He continues, I'm so sorry that my timing's off, but I can't move on if we're still going to talk. Okay, pause right there. This is an issue I've noticed a lot, especially in the dating world. Why is it we think it's okay to break up with someone and then continue trying to be just friends? That usually just hurts you and or the other person. Truly. And also this whole just friends with benefits is also an issue, which he could be referring to as well. Either way, yes, you should, if you're going to break up with someone, do them a favor, be kind to them, just cut it off, allow them to keep going. And I say this as someone who, one of my best friends, she dated a guy and they were close, but then it just didn't work out and they still maintained their friendship. But honestly, I always thought, it's kind of not healthy for that guy because he secretly really wants to get back with you and is preventing him from moving on and being with someone else and finding a relationship with someone else to marry. So it's not healthy. Just, some general relationship advice. If it doesn't work out, cut it off. Don't keep talking. He continues, is it wrong for me not to want half? No, it's not wrong at all. You should want someone to commit to you all the way. None of this hookup culture or just friends with benefit stuff. You need all or nothing in a relationship. And if it's not worth everything, then it should be worth, not worth nothing. But if it's not worth giving your all, then you really should let it go. He says, I want all of you, all the strings attached, which is good. Hopefully by strings attached, you don't mean just like living together. You mean actually marriage and putting a ring on it. And then he continues, oh, I'm good at keeping my distance. I know you're the feeling I'm missing. I hate to admit it, but everything means nothing if I can't have you. This is a song glorifying codependence. It's not healthy for American culture, and it's not healthy for people to think that this is romantic and cute. It's not. It's got some dysfunction, and I wouldn't recommend emulating it. All right, I'm going to answer a quick question. And also, just so you know, next week's episode is going to be a special episode. I'm answering all of your questions because I have so many questions come into my inbox, and I realized that it was going to take me a lifetime to try and answer them in our regular podcast. So I did an entire episode dedicated to answering your questions. Look forward to that next Monday. So this question is by So Linked Choices. I guess that's their username. I'm tired of the whole capital punishment thing. The pro-choice side points out. Any tips? Yeah, I've heard this too. People say you're not really pro-life unless you're against capital punishment. You're against the death penalty. Well, no, you can be, because I'm pro-innocent life, pro-protecting those who can't protect themselves and are completely innocent of any wrongdoing. Capital punishment is administered to the worst of the worst criminals who are very much proved guilty. And I'm pro-protecting innocent life. There are some things where you forfeit your right to life. If you do something so horrible and so horrendous that you're no longer protected, and you have done something so egregious that your life cannot be continued in existence. It's danger to the people around you, and quite frankly, a drain on our system because we have to pay huge amounts of bucks to keep you in a life for prison for life. I have issues with that too, but that's another subject. So just tell them, I'm pro-innocent life. I'm pro-innocent life. I am for capital punishment, but I am against taking the life of unborn human beings, the most innocent and vulnerable among us. All right, now we're going to end with good in the world. This story is a little interesting. It's a 14-year-old boy decided he wanted to eliminate the huge lunch. There's a school lunch debt for kids who go and buy lunch from the school, and then there's debt and they can't pay it. And so what he was seeing is in a school district of 129 schools in Texas is that there were kids who couldn't get food anymore. They were going hungry because their parents couldn't pay their school lunch debt, which is unfortunate. Also, school lunches kind of suck, but I guess if you're hungry, then that's what's available. And so this kind boy decided he was going to make an account called Lunch Counts, and his original goal was to raise $3,200 to pay off the lunch debts at 3 different schools. Well, it went so crazy well that in a matter of days his GoFundMe page exceeded the initial goal, and now he has raised nearly half of the district's overall lunch debt, and that's for all 123 schools. Now, what I love about this story is it's a 14-year-old being encouraged to show kindness to other humans who may have less than him. It's a kindness and support by other human beings who are donating this to help those who are in need. And that's the way it's supposed to be. Communities gathering together to help those less fortunate, not government. That's not the government's proper role. I mean, honestly, in a perfect world, we get rid of our entitlement programs and our various social programs because, quite frankly, they're not run well. They're usually not effective. There's usually a lot of fraud and abuse in them. And at the end of the day, the more beautiful action and way to solve this problem is for individuals to have the kindness of their heart to raise this money and then give to others. And then when those others are receiving, they know, hey, this didn't just come from Uncle Sam. There's no third removal person. This came from another person who had to sacrifice their money to give to me. And so they're less likely to abuse it. And also there is a lot more, there's a lot less room, because when the government's involved, then there's a lot of room for corruption, but there's a lot less room for corruption when you have private individuals and private companies or organizations coming in to take care of the needy. So that is our good in the world story. With that, I am going to wish you a happy rest of your week. God bless you. God bless America.